Yo, everybody, welcome to episode 17 of the Channel 8 podcast. I'm your host, Sean Go, and for today's episode, I'd like to welcome lifelong sneaker fan, hip hop connoisseur, vinyl collector, middle school math educator, and most importantly, a good friend of mine, Kevin Cormier. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate being here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
How's everything been going? You know, school's out now, right?
Almost. We got about a week left, and then another day for my seventh graders. But I mean, in everybody's minds, we're done. So
Nice. I'm sure it's been a crazy year and a half for you and the students and everything.
yeah, it's. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, it's everybody's come out of this changed, and hopefully, we can use some of that for the better. That's the hope.
Well, fingers crossed. I'm sure things hopefully are only going to be going up from here, but I don't want to jinx it. But we can only hope.
I mean, as long as we can come back in September without masks, I think that's going to be like that. Everything else can kind of sort of take care of itself after that.
How I usually start off the show is just asking you, what shoes have you been wearing in the past week or two? Have you been wearing anything special, or what's been in your rotation?
So yeah, I've been. So this is my last year in the classroom. I'm moving to a director role next week, and so because of the way that the pandemic kind of fell out, like I'm usually a shirt and tie to school kind of thing, but I didn't feel like that matched the moment. So I was in a place where we just did like casual Fridays, and I would wear sneakers on Fridays. But now because this year I just decided I wanted it to be different. I've just worn a different pair every day, try to get through like as much as I could this year. So I'm hitting different parts of the stacks that I hadn't hit yet. So it was a little eccentric mix this week. So I started So if we go back to like the weekends, I mean, still like the Street Hawker dunks are still like I wear those all the time. Like that's still I haven't put them back in the box yet since I bought them. So that's been out there. I wore the Black and Gum Air Jordan 1s because I needed to be a little bit more formal for a presentation. So I kind of cheated there. I wore the Puma Suede 50th anniversary collab with Babito Garcia, which was cool because I put it up on Instagram and he liked it. So it's one of my like college heroes, like liking my stuff online. That's always cool. Then I went with the Air Jordan 3 Black Cements. I finally und'd that new pair because I have a student who has a pair, so we twinned that day.
That's amazing.
So by the end of the year, I'm like, Santi, we both gotta rock the threes, and so we did. And then we had Pride Day at school, so I wore my Zoom Fly the Be True editions. That was on Friday, and then this weekend I've been rocking was my favorite shoe last year was the SB Trainer ones that came out last year, the old Mac and Rose. I love those sneakers, so those are out a lot too.
Yeah, I love the variety. For me, so I started off the week with the New Balance 992 in the tan colorway, and then I wore the Air Jordan 1 Royals, and then I wore the Collegium Pillar Destroyer High Varsity Red. Shout out to Nick, fellow Team Roshe member. And then I wore the Adidas Yeezy Boost 380 in the Alien colorway, the original one. And then I wore the New Balance 2002R collab with This Is Never That in the white colorway with that vintage midsole. And then I ended the week with the denim collaboration on the Air Max 1 Blue Void. So that's been my week. In terms of pickups, have you been buying a lot of shoes these days? Like how's it been going for you?
It's slowed down a bit just because I've just really sort of salted on the how hard it is to get some stuff. So I mean, there's things that are on my list, but I'm trying to decide if how much past resale I want to do. But I do have the Jordan 1, the purple metallics coming in because I was able to get a pretty good deal on those. And then I also pre-ordered, and this is when you mentioned Nick and Collegium, and because we know somebody who's done this great quality with a small thing. Even though I can't stand the name, and I'm sorry, the We Are Underdogs, I think it's a dumb name, but I did pre-order the Seth Fowler ones because I think that's a dope looking shoe, and I want to see. I'm confident in its quality because again, we know what kind of quality a small producer like that can make. So I was like, yeah, I'll take a chance on that one. So I mean, they'll come in July or something like that, but I figured, yeah, what the heck.
Yeah, I kind of like what they're doing. They're partnering up with a lot of creators and just creating their very own silhouette, which is really, really dope. So
I can't wait to see you in version 2.
Honestly, like I'm terrible at design, so I don't even know what I would do. It'd probably look like crap, but maybe one day we'll see. Fingers crossed. For me, pickups Actually, it's been a pretty light week, all things considered. So I'm looking at my sheet. So I picked up the Bricks and Wood collab with New Balance on the 5740, that green
Oh, right, right.
with
Yep.
a burgundy-ish sole. I got the Air Jordan 1 women's in the metallic purple, like yourself. I got the Nike Dunk Low in the Spartan green or team green, whatever you want to call that. And then I got the LeBron 8 lows in the Miami Nights colorway, which I'm super excited. I'm waiting for that in the mail. Can't wait to get those.
LeBron's in one of those shoes, and we've talked about this before. Like I really wish they were wider. Like I just can't find one that fits. I've had a bunch of these. I had the 6 lows when they came out, like the patent one that looks sort of like the Concord 11s, but like I forgot. Everybody else in the world says Concord 11. Here in Massachusetts, we have a town called Concord, so like I mispronounce it because of that. But yeah, I like those, and I wore them like 3 times. I'm like, I can't do this; it's too narrow. Like every year, I'm like, I'll try this LeBron. I'm like, nope, it's still too narrow. Like,
Even if you go up a half, or
yeah, because then it's like it's still a little bit, and then if I go up a full, then it's too long, and yeah,
yeah, I hear you.
I just can't. But he's got some great shoes, but like I can't wear them.
Yeah, I guess it's not for everyone's foot shape, but I'm surprised because I thought my feet relative to yours were wide, and
Yeah.
I'm okay with LeBron's, but I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to my brand new channel flipping segment, which is a rapid fire Q&A session where I give you 2 options and you pick the one that you're feeling the most. So,
All right, bring it.
all right, cool. So question 1. This is going to be so stereotypical and I apologize in advance. Clam chowder or lobster rolls?
Ooh, all right. So I'm gonna go lobster roll. They're more consistent to find. Some bad clam chowder is bad.
Boston Bruins or Boston Red Sox?
I gotta go Red Sox.
1986 Boston Celtics or 2008 Boston Celtics?
Oh, 86.
LA Lakers or New York Yankees?
Oh man, who do I hate less?
Yeah.
I think I hate the Yankees less because I actually like Mariano Rivera.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't like any Lakers ever.
Adidas Superstars or Adidas Forums?
Forums.
Nas or Beastie Boys?
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean for legacy, you got to go Beastie Boys. Although Illmatic is the best hip hop album of all time, but talking catalog, Beastie Boys.
Notorious B.I.G. or Tupac?
Oh, Biggie.
Is that because you're from the East Coast, or?
No, I actually. So the thing is, I think Tupac was a phenomenal entertainer. But if you just took him as a rapper, I think he's average. But like he had way more charisma. Like I think if he was still alive, he'd be an insane movie star. Like I think he had a lot more of that charisma to him. But just on wax, Biggie.
Okay, Air Jordan 1 or the Nike Dunk?
No, the Jordan 1.
Air Max 1 or Air Max 90?
90.
And last question, geometry or algebra?
Oh, algebra. Although shout out to probability and statistics because that's where my love is.
I hate math so much, so I just like picked the 2 randomest things that popped in my head.
I love when accountants hate math. It's great.
So you are in the Boston area right now, but
Yes.
I don't know too much about like your background and like, your history. Talk about a little bit, like where were you raised? How did you first get exposed to sneakers, music, all that stuff? What was the scene like growing up for you?
Sure, and I should probably preface this because if I have people listening, and I don't know if it exists in Toronto or other cities, there's a real sort of like divide between if you were born like in Boston, like neighborhoods of Boston, versus like outside of Boston. So I have to make it plain up front, like I'm talking about outside of Boston because like I'll go like travel whatever, and people say, "Where are you from?" They don't know the name of my town, and so I'll just say, "Oh, I'm from Boston." And then if you run into somebody who is from Boston, like they get pissed.
We sort of
I
have
even said
that.
like I'm outside of Boston and I'm 20 minutes from. If you look at like Bruins or Celtics games and they have that aerial shot of the Garden, I can be there in 20 minutes. So to me, that's like I'm outside of Boston. And there are people who are like, "Oh, you're way out there." And like, okay. So I don't want to misrepresent. And if you want true Boston history, Dart Adams on Twitter is amazing to follow. But yeah, I've lived within a half hour of Boston my whole life, out in the suburbs. So it was one of those things where sneakers were what they were when you were a kid, and then you get to like the mid 80s and you start to notice. Now Boston was a huge, and still really is to an extent, but it's a huge Adidas town. Adidas like ruled Boston. So I've always with last year when those forums came out, like that was the shoe in Boston. That's why like like Superstars was like that meant New York, and so there was that rivalry. So it was like it was cool, but like the forums where it was at in Boston. And what was funny is because there's no internet back there, and I'm just assuming that's a Boston thing. When the retros came out, people were like, "Oh yeah, in Baltimore they were huge. Oh, in Detroit they were huge." And I had no idea. I just thought it was local to us. But I'm a kid. I'm born in '74, so I remember all of the '80s. So I remember Run DMC comes out with my Adidas, and so we're all rocking that. The first Beastie Boys record comes out. They're all wearing like suede Pumas, and they're wearing shell toes, and so like that was the whole thing. So Nike didn't really enter into the consciousness around here. Probably, and not even like the Jordan 1. It was a skate shoe for us. Like we saw them in skate videos, Lance Mountain and all that stuff. Like that was more of a connection to me because we have Larry Bird. We don't really care about Michael Jordan. He has the one playoff game and with the 63 points that he lost that game, and no one ever talks about that. That really didn't stick. And then it was a little bit later. I'm into hip hop growing up, and you start to see like the threes on album covers, like, and that becomes a thing, right? And so now it's not necessarily about Jordan, but it's about the status that comes with the shoe. But I mean, at the time, like Fila had the same thing going on. Ales was like a luxury brand, right? I used to rock. I don't even know if they're still around. If they are, they're not really like that popular. But there was a brand called Avia, and like I think Clyde Drexler wore those. I think I don't know. It's like some like one like mid-tier NBA guy was wearing those, and so we used to wear those because they were cool because they were foreign. And so like we used to mess around with a lot of things. British Knights was big in the '80s, and so we would kind of experiment with everything. And then kind of referencing back to the trainers, John McEnroe comes out. We all see those trainer ones, and we're like, those are dope. I want those. And so that's when Nike started to creep in. And then the Agassiz were huge, but it was still sort of like it was still secondary. I'd say it was like the Fab Five was when Nike really made its mark, like in the suburbs of Boston. Yeah, even Jordans like didn't really hit to like the five, maybe like, and that was like probably because of Fresh Prince. Like it still never really had a direct tie to Jordan here because we were so Celtics focused. You'd see way more people wearing Converse weapons than Jordan 1s because again, Bird. And even after that, the pumps were huge because Dee Brown was here. Reggie Lewis wore Reebok, so these Reebok black high tops, which I mean, I've seen a couple of times retro or whatever, but like those were big here because we went to the Celtics and that was the thing. And again, it all kind of tied back to music because everything was, what were in the videos or what was in movies at the time. Like you would watch a movie like, oh, like cool, like so and so is wearing like, that version of Rusty in Christmas Vacation had threes on. Like you noticed that stuff. The performance shoes were performance shoes. Like we knew how shoes performed, and we knew what shoes were stylish, and we never really combined the two. Like I grew up playing soccer, in middle school and high school. At the time we could tell you everything about any soccer cleat out there. Like the Copa Mundial was like the biggest thing. And then indoor soccer sneakers were huge. I remember a guy who was a couple years ahead of me comes back from a tour. He's playing in Europe and he comes back with this brand. And I'm like, what is that? He's like, it's called Diadora, I think. And it's like, and so it's Diadora we figured out. And so we're all rocking Diadoras for a year. Like, it was all over the place. And then I graduated, went to college, and I basically wore Adidas Campus for the next like 15 years. Like that was it. So, and then around 05, I got into teaching. I was coaching basketball my first year. Kid on my teams got the Jordan 21s, and I had no idea that Jordan was even still going at that point. I didn't know they were putting out like, because he'd retired. I didn't know they were putting them out. And as it happened, the black metallic 5s were due to retro. This is 06. And I was like, I never had those as a kid. I always want those. I'm like, that's cool. They're coming out again. I think I went on East Bay or whatever and got a pair. Like didn't realize that there were such things as sneaker drops. Learned all of this like, much later in life. And then, that was it. Once I was able to get those 5s, I was like, what else can I get? And that became what we are today, what you see here.
You and myself, we had met through Nike Talk. And I know our listeners probably know my whole Team Roshe story. I've talked about it countless number of times, but I'm curious to know like your experience. So like, it seems like we started getting into sneakers around the same time, 05, 06. Obviously like you had that first taste when you were younger, whereas for me, it was really kind of like my first exposure. But I think the Roshe was kind of that uniting shoe that brought people from all different walks of life and all different experiences with shoes all together. So how was your experience finding the Roshe in the first place? And how did you stumble upon Nike Talk, the thread, and joining the organization and all that stuff?
I honestly don't remember how I found Nike Talk. It might have just been a Google search when I was trying to find out about these fives. And so, I've been on message boards for different things before, trading cards, whatever. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's another one. And I just I like to learn. Like, I mean, I'm a teacher and it's stereotypical, whatever. But like all of my friends, you and everybody else, you're all my friends because I can learn from you. Like that's my number one thing about people who I keep in my circles. I'm 46. I don't need new friends unless you got something for me, right? And so if I can learn from you, then cool. We're good. So I'm like in catch up mode because I don't some things like this. I'm like I don't just kind of get into it. I'm like now I need to know everything. I didn't know it existed. Now I need to know all of it. So Nike Talk was part of that. But then what I noticed is like so I started teaching in '06. So from 2000 to 2006, whatever, when I was working in a record store, I was managing a record store. I would watch. I always looked at feet when people came in, and it was just kind of out of curiosity. And that early 2000s era, like I know there's a group of people who are like nostalgic for that, and I look at those. Those are some of the ugliest things I've ever seen. So I was like, I wasn't really feeling what was like contemporary that I knew about. Like, and that was because I always, again, gravitated towards basketball because that's what I knew. And then I just happened to stumble on this Roshe thing, and I was like, well, those shoes are dope. They're simple, and they're $70. Like, let's see what these are about. Like, it didn't have that oversized, like, clunky sole. It didn't seem like they weighed 3 pounds each. I was like, I'm on my feet all day. Like, I'll give a shot to these. And as you told, it was like, they started out in Nordstrom Rack. I happen to have a Nordstrom Rack 2 towns over from me, so I found the sport red pair, picked them up, and I was like, all right, well then the collector in me takes over, and like I need another one, and I need another one, and they turned into that thing. And at the same time, we were all sort of doing that, right? And I remember looking at your photos, going, "That's insane! I'll never get to that." Because you had like sprites, you had like the what was those yellow ones, like it was nuts. And so I'm like, all right, I can get in on this. Like, again, for $70, or Nordstrom, they were cheaper. And then it just turned into fun because like the hunt is fun, right? If you're a collector, the hunt is fun, and helping people find things is fun. It's like it's something that like it's rewarding. It's not like I can get anything now. Like, it's like if you have the money and you know where to click, like you can have anything. And this wasn't the case there. We had to set up a little network, and we would just kind of, hey, Oneness has these, or Vanity has these, or Unheard of has these. Like, and we would just swarm them with phone orders or whatever. And it was like that was fun, and it felt like a community, and I really liked being part of that. And so then when Team Roshe joined, I was like, I don't know, I feel like I know enough about this that I can help others. And so until you said that, I forgot there was an application process. And there was, apply, like how many do you have, and how have you helped the community, and all that stuff. And it was like, whatever, I'll try it. Whoever was there at the time, I think I'm number 18, so there were a few people ahead of me, and it just turned into this really dope collaborative, and we just like started to click with each other, and then found, we have a lot more in common than just this one sneaker, whether it be other sneakers or just life stuff or whatever. And, we got a pretty close knit group of people that I still talk to a bunch of them today, even if, it's for completely non-Roshe related reasons. We're still all, we're friends. And so I thought that was probably the best thing to come out of it. Is it the friends you make along the way?
At some point we had gone from strictly the Nike Talk Roshe thread, and then we started that Facebook group.
Yeah.
And that's really what kickstarted and strengthened the bonds and that friendship between all of us, right?
Yeah, it was. I remember, like, it was a Saturday. I was home, and I had my laptop open, and I had Facebook open, and all of a sudden the little chat message comes up, and it's like, hey, and I was like, what? And I was like, I think it says like, you have ascended. I was like, what? And it was like a group of you that were like, all right, we're get this conversation going. Like, I am now worthy of being in the conversation. And I was like, they like me, they like the old guy. And so, yeah, and it was great. It's like I said, there were 13 or 14 like core of us like at the time, and like that were really the ones that, like, people were in it, and they were there's a lot of great people. I don't want to slight anybody else, but like, there was a core group of people who were like doing that work at the time. They were posting the photos, they were writing the Instagram posts, like, we had that website for a while. I don't even, the website's probably still up, but like all that stuff. And that was just fun. And, you said it's expanded beyond, because like we've been to each other's weddings, like, we just grew into just being like a family.
Yeah. And it's surreal because when you compare then to how the state of sneaker culture can be oftentimes today, it was really a community, and it was really like a family and a brotherhood, and it's something I really miss about the culture these days.
Yeah, and so what's interesting about it is because I've seen this sort of shift happen a couple of times because that you couldn't replicate that now. It's impossible because of the way social media is and the way leaks are and all that stuff. Excuse me. And I always like liken it to, again, we come back to, we mentioned Nas before, but I was in college when Illmatic came out. I was doing my college radio station, and the way they rolled out the release of that album, they were like, we knew for like 6 months this thing was coming. This kid was the next big thing. We'd heard him on Main Sources Live at the Barbecue. There was a song on a Zebrahead soundtrack. Like, we had some tastes of what this kid was, but like, and he was a kid, he was 18, and they would put out a single and then wait like 6 weeks to work it and then put out the next single. So by the time I knew Illmatic was a thing, by the time I heard Illmatic, it was a good 6 months, right? Anticipation, great marketing, like it was, the buildup was there. That doesn't exist anymore with the internet, right? People just drop albums like literally out of the blue tomorrow. There's nothing to build that up. It's kind of the same with sneakers, right? The way we built up the Roshe, like, I don't think there's another sneaker that can follow that path, because there will be 50 renderings out tomorrow. There's 35 raffles for everything, all this stuff. So like I don't think that could happen again. I think we hit a magical time.
No, no doubt. It was truly magical. And I'd say you can disagree with me if you want, but the peak of our Team Roshe experience, we're probably around 350K followers on Instagram, and that's around the time when Nike Sportswear reached out to us and invited us to come over to the Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon.
That was nuts. I was actually on vacation with my parents when somebody, I think John just called me. I was like, I wasn't on Facebook or whatever. He's like, hey, and I was like, you're kidding? Like, really? Like, this is going to be a thing? Like, the 8 of us, well, 9 if you count the troll. I hope somewhere in post editing the troll comes up. We went out there, and that was the whole time. I was like, there's very little that like I'm in awe of anymore, but like walking around that campus, like I was in awe, just like looking around. I remember, to me, still the funniest part is Leo Chang walked by us wearing that jacket, the flash jacket. And then the next day, like 4 of us were bought it at the employee store. I still have it, still wear it all the time. Like, it's still my favorite jacket. But like things like that, it's like, oh, that's a legend walking by us. That's interesting. Like, that's, and they just do that. They walk around all day. And like Dylan was great, and they took us out to, to dinner that night. And I feel like they kind of dropped the ball in the follow-up, but at least that experience was pretty amazing.
Yeah, no doubt. That's definitely one of those memories that I'll cherish for the rest of my life, because probably that's never going to happen again. And just the way that whole situation came to be in itself is just truly magical, like you said.
I remember, yeah, so I had to leave early because I ran my first half marathon that weekend. So I took a red eye from Portland to Boston, slept for an hour, and then went and ran a half marathon.
So being a quote unquote sneaker teacher, I don't know if that's like a term people use for you, but is there a reputation that you have among your students and your coworkers?
Yeah, there is. And I didn't realize, like you said, whether it's a term, there's actually a pretty decent Instagram like conclave of like sneaker teachers, which I didn't know either. Like, I was just, how stuff gets this suggested to you, whatever. But I think your fellow Canadian Sean Collard, I think, is one of the premier ones. So again, kind of started out because it was just a Friday thing, and then kids would say, oh, they would just kind of look on Friday. And then this year, it's obviously taken its life of its own. But even like my colleagues, the fun part is like when they try to like, oh, I got these, and it's like, okay, cool. Like, like they want to be part of it, and you're like, okay, like that's nice. And same with the kids. The kids the kids are great about it. They're like, how do you have so many of them? I said, my feet haven't grown in 30 years. I can just keep buying them. And what's interesting is what gets reaction and what doesn't, because there's a few of my students who you could probably put in the hype piece category. Most of them aren't. So like, I could just be wearing like this random GR, and then all day kids would be like, oh, those are so great. Those are great. And then like I wore like the lobster dunks, and like nobody said a thing. It's like, because nobody knows what they are.
So over the years that you've been teaching these kids, have you noticed like a shift in or growing interest among these students as sneaker culture has become more and more popular, or has it been? Are they kind of at the age where it's a bit too young for them to really care?
Um, it depends. I mean, some of them definitely do, especially this year, because all the kids have Chromebooks because we've been, hybrid, and so we gave every kid a Chromebook this year. And so I'll see kids like when I come in, just like Google my sneakers, like to see what they are. Or even when I had like the beginning of the year when half my class was at home, I would have kids in the comments of the Google Meets be like, "Hey, what are you wearing today?" Like, so they were kind of up on it. And because I had one kid who did it every day, and I could tell I could give him a minute because I knew he was Googling it, and then he would just come back in the chat and go, "Oh, those are cool." Like, so, I mean, there's a bit of that out there. They're much more like if you look at what they wear, they're more performance based. Like my crew this year, who's probably the most interested, a lot of Giannis sneakers, a lot of Westbrooks, because they all play. Like, so they're looking for stuff that they can play in. Yeah, there's I mean a lot of Vans, a lot of Converse. Like they're pretty much just like it's their daily beater, so they just get something that's like cool and that's it. But they appreciate it, but they don't really partake in it.
When I was a kid, at least, like I didn't have anything special, and I would get my one pair a year, and I would beat them to death, and then that was it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, especially because if you played sports, you were like you had your daily ones, but then you had whatever. Fortunately, I played soccer and baseball, so I had to just I had my daily sneakers, but then I had to have soccer cleats and I had to have baseball cleats because I couldn't go over. I remember my junior year of of high school, so this would be 90, like 90, 91 in that era. I was number 32 because 23 was taken. But we all, because of the Jordan PEs, wrote our numbers on the heel of our cleats, like to mimic the fives. And they last for a game because it's a marker. It's like, but we all thought we were so cool doing that. I don't think like that's something like there's no version of that for the kids today. And I think a lot of it has to do with because the people who are making sneakers cool or visible or whatever aren't athletes, right? And so they're musicians, they're actors, they're influencers, whatever that is. Like that's the thing that is making them take notice more than even like the pregame, like the tunnel walks, like what are they wearing during those rather than what are they wearing on court. Like those seem to have more of an influence than anything that's like more the thing that are supposed to be seen, right? Like brands want to sell those, but it's like that's not what's selling. It's what they're wearing to the game, not what they're wearing during the game.
Yeah, you definitely see a shift where the popular shoes aren't really the ones that are worn on the court. Like you see Zion shoes and Giannis shoes, they're all kind of just sitting and they'll hit the outlets. Whereas the lifestyle shoes that are worn by, like you said, the artists and the influencers and stuff like that, those are the ones that kids are, and even not even just kids, even grown people like myself, like we're gravitating towards those models too.
Yeah, I mean, like some of the things that I have in here, like some of my favorite sneakers that I own are my MF Doom Dunks, right? It's because I like MF Doom. It's not I haven't skated since the '80s, and I sucked at it then. So it's like I'm not in it for the performance skating aspect. I love dunks because what they do with them. I love the artistry of them. The collaborations. Like I think that's some of the more creative things in the space. But yeah, it comes down to like I mean, with me with crossing over with the music and the sneakers, like if there's a musician that has has an involvement with sneaker, I'm probably interested as long as I like the musician. So take a seat, Travis Scott. But like, my De La Souls, Slayer, like Run DMC. I'm looking right now. I have the 3 different Run DMC Adidas. The was the Americanas that the Beastie Boys put out last year for their Paul's Boutique 30th anniversary. Like those are the things that like because I have a connection to it from 2 perspectives, right? I like the sneaker, but I also like the influence behind the design or whoever was part of that. Like so like that's so the kids have some of that, except that they just don't have the history behind it, right? They're just like what's hyped because that's all they know. They're not old enough to have history yet. So
For sure, for sure. So, last question for you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but you had mentioned earlier that you wore the Lobster SB Dunks. And I know that when we had talked, I remember you were mentioning to me how you were debating whether or not to grab them. And that was pretty much, I'd say it was one of your grails. And you'd also mentioned, given the state of the sneaker culture right now, it's pretty hard to grab like a somewhat decent hype shoe for retail, even for myself. Like I don't even consider the retail price pretty much anymore. Like I'm just factoring in what would it cost me if I had to buy these on resale. So are you the type that would dive into the resale market, or are you more so like a strictly retail or bust sort of buyer?
something will come up like the what the Peter odds. I saw a picture of them. I go, oh, those are cool. I'll never get them for retail. Like that's just like it wasn't. I'll enter whatever raffle and whatever. I'll go through that stuff. But it's like I'll put in my sneakers draw. But I know that it's just a train of L's coming my way. So like I don't. So you're right. It's like all right. So I like that shoe at 150. But at what price do I not like the shoe anymore, right? And so I mean, the Street Hawkers were the last one that I really like overpaid for because I like the story behind them. I thought they were dope execution. I don't know how many more of those I have in me. The one thing wearing every pair this year has done is just like, oh, I've gotten rid of a bunch because I was like, oh, I bought this sneaker and I wore it. I'm like, oh, I don't really like it on feet. Like, all right, well, then I've sold like 70 pairs this year. And even the lobster dunks. I mean, and we talked about this. The only reason I really talked myself into buying this because I hit on a couple Super Bowl squares, and so it wasn't really that much of my actual money. Like it was just sort of free money. But the whole idea of grail to me, like I use that term in kind of two tiers. Like lobsters were a grail, but they were an attainable grail, right? But again, there's history behind it. There's all that stuff. And again, kind of paralleling back to music, like there needs to be time and history behind something. So, a record comes out and someone's like, oh, this is a classic. It's like, you won't know it's a classic for 10 years. You can't name something a classic that came out last week, right? So to me, it's like, you can't say something's a grail if it came out like this year, right? And because again, there's this point where something's not unattainable because you can't find it, it's because you can't afford it. And I don't think that's a grail. Like, so like Union Ones, like I like them, I just don't want to pay for them. But if I wanted to, I could go to Sneak City every day and find a size 10. Like they're not hard to find, they're just hard to afford. Right. So when I think about like the grails and the things that I would really like, how much do I want to extend myself for? They're things that like I can't find regularly. And so like my ultimate one, and I don't even know if it exists because I've only seen sort of like mock-ups and renderings, but there is a DJ, he's still around, DJ Z Trip, who had 100 pairs of a friends and family dunk like 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. I'd love to get a hold of one of those. Like that would be, because I've never really seen one, right? And it's something that I don't think I would have to worry about like a fake, because I don't think fakes of those would exist. Where I would like the Deftones dunks, I would love, but I'm sure there's only 24 of them, so 4 out of every 5 you see are probably fake. And even like they don't even have to be hype, because I always think about there was, as I said, we were wearing indoor soccer sneakers in the 90s. I remember buying the Bo Jacksons. Because I got them for Christmas, and I was going on a school trip to France, and I was like, I need a pair of sneakers, and so I kind of talked to my parents and let me get those. But next to it was a pair of indoor sneakers. They were called the Adidas Striker, and they were this beautiful. They had like some black, silver, red stripes on the black sort of kangaroo leather upper, the big flap over tongue. Like I love those, and those are the two sneakers I was debating between. But Bo Jackson was my hero, so I was like, I'm getting the Bo Jacksons. I've never seen them since. And every once in a while, I just but I can't even find like pictures of them on the internet, because they're probably just some random GR from 1990. Adidas will never retro those. Like I need to find somebody who just like put them in a storage bin, like in like a sporting goods store went out of business or something like that. That's the only way I'm going to find those. Like to me, that's a grail. Like that's the grail. And then you have like your attainable grails. Like it's like, okay, that's just something I need to save up for, put in a little bit of legwork to find one that's in decent condition, and that's where I put the lobsters in that one. Like they're out there, but like they're not on every corner.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Everyone has like a different definition of grail. Even between us, like my definition is a little bit different than yours. It's more so if I could only choose like one sneaker to keep, that would be my definition of a grail. And for me, like I know a lot of you guys know it'd be the white cement 3s, but if we're talking something more unattainable, then we have like the typical responses like the Nike Mag, which is crazy. Like I wish I can have a pair just to display. Like the Dunks, which stupidly should have bought back in the day, but now they're just completely unattainable. So things like that. But that's the beauty about sneakers. Everyone's definition of A, B, and C is so different, and we all have our own tastes and preferences. So
that's a great thing about this space, because I didn't really know too much about it. Even like the last probably 6 months, being well, maybe a year now, we've been shut in quarantine or whatever. Like I followed your channel because it's you, right? If we go back and like, I'm just going to support my boy, like we're going to do this. I never really paid attention to like other sneaker YouTubers, because I didn't really know. I don't really even pay attention to YouTube as an entertainment thing, because I was like, I just go for like how-to videos and stuff like that. Like I didn't realize there was like content that was worth watching. And so a couple times, things show up as suggestions because I follow you, and so I followed a couple other sneaker people. And what I love is because I have like 3 or 4 that I watch all the time, and you all bring, it's kind of the same thing. Like you have your own unique thing. Like there's no crossover, right? So I always consider you, like, you're the most sophisticated out of the group that I watch, because you're doing the higher end stuff, the stuff that like people who appreciate sneakers for quality, for craftsmanship, for like that sort of like high level artistry. Like that's what's on your channel, right? It's not just because it's hype, like because you've done more probably bringing back New Balance than anybody else, but like because you genuinely love it, and you're like, people need to know about these, right? And so like these other channels I watch, they're not going to cover your random 992s because that's not in their wheelhouse. But like like Chris Chase, in the wear testing thing, like that's more performance thing, and he's closer to my age, so when he's talking about nostalgia, like I get some of his references more than like an 18-year-old watching his channel would, because of like, I've never seen these before, and I'm like, no, like Iverson was amazing, like you should go watch Iverson videos all day long, and something like that. And then like SB Mitch, I just think it's funny. Like he's just ridiculous. I love him. Like he's just fun to watch, So it's like I have like those different channels, and everybody again approaches the sneakers from their own lens, their own like, this is what it means to me. And then as a viewer, I can say, okay, I can take something from each of you and inform my next purchase or my next not purchase. I watch something, you know what, maybe I didn't want those. Like I thought I did because of this or that or the other thing. And so like I think that's great. I think that's one of the things that's more needed in the sneaker space.
Yeah, and it's part of the reason why whenever someone asks me about tips on starting their own channel, one of the first things I say is find your unique voice, find that unique avenue, and just go for it. Like you don't want to be a copycat and have everyone pushing out the same sort of content, right? Myself, the reason why I did my channel the way I do is because that's the type of content I'm looking for, and I figured, at least here in Canada, we're kind of missing that sort of content from a creator perspective. Again, the beauty of the sneaker game, everyone is a little bit different perspectives, and it just makes it that much more of a richer experience. So
absolutely.
So if anyone wants to find you on your social channels, where can they find you?
My Instagram's at Kevin M. Cormier. And then my Twitter is at KC37, but you're just going to get me ranting about things a lot. I don't know how enjoyable it is. Like, I don't know this 90s hip hop take. I don't know what I'm reading. Or I don't know why I'm mad at this particular educational policy, but it's out there. Join in.
So for anyone that's remotely interested in education, math, hip hop, or sneakers, or just likes to follow a really dope, well-rounded dude, then that's the account you guys should follow.
All right, thanks, man.
So for myself, if you guys want to check out my YouTube channel, you can find me at youtube.com/SeanGo. You can find my Instagram photos. I try to take some half decent photos of my sneakers, but you can find me at sgo8. And on Twitter, where I post a lot of my videos and talk occasionally about basketball, you can find me there at Sean.go spelt out. So Kevin, thank you so much. It's been super long overdue. I've known you for what? It's been 7-8 years?
7 or 8 years, yeah.
Something like that. It's been a long, long time, but time's flying. But thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure. So thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, we'll catch you in our next episode.